The maps of an entire continent were drawn not by armies, not by gold, but by the hunt for a single small animal. And behind that hunt was something almost absurd, a fashionable hat.
The demand for one accessory, worn on the streets of Europe, pushed men deep into the wilderness of North America and reshaped the destiny of a continent.
Things you've never seen, now revealed.
This is how the world moves.
The borders of an entire continent, the cities, the routes, the frontiers of North America, were drawn not by armies and not by gold. They were drawn by the hunt for a single small animal that builds dams and rivers, the beaver. And behind that hunt was something that sounds almost absurd when you say it out loud. A fashionable hat. In the South, with the Spanish, the search for gold really did drive everything. But across that vast interior of forests, rivers, and mountains, it was the demand for one accessory, worn on the streets of Europe, an ocean away, that pushed men deep into the wilderness, through brutal winters, and reshaped the destiny of a continent. This is the story of how a hat moved a world.
To understand how we got here, you have to start with fashion. In Europe, from the 14th century onward, one item became the ultimate symbol of status and elegance: the felt hat made from beaver fur. And why the beaver? Because its fur has microscopic barbs that lock together perfectly, making the finest felt in existence. The result was a hat that was durable, water-resistant, and could be molded into elegant shapes. It became a must-have. From kings to merchants, men and women, everyone in Europe wanted their beaver hat. And where there's an insatiable fashion, there's a problem coming. Demand was so enormous that European beavers were hunted almost to extinction. By around the year 1600, there were essentially no beavers left in Europe.
And this is where the two sides of the story meet, at a perfect moment. Right as the European beavers ran out, Europeans were beginning to explore and colonize North America, and what they found there was breathtaking abundance. It's estimated that, before Europeans arrived, there were between 60 and 200 million beavers in North America, an ocean of beavers. On one side, a Europe starving for fur, with no beavers left. On the other, a new continent overflowing with them. You can already imagine what happened. It became a rush. Beaver fur became soft gold, and the engine of that rush was about to shape the map of America itself.
At first, it was French fishermen and explorers in eastern Canada in the 1500s who began the trade. And this trade depended from the very first day on the indigenous peoples. They were the ones who knew the land, who trapped the beavers, and who supplied the pelts. In exchange, the Europeans offered knives, kettles, axes, metal tools. It was a meeting of two completely different worlds. In 1608, the explorer Samuel de Champlain founded the city of Quebec, which was born as a fur trading post, not as a military fort, not as a church, as a place to buy and sell beaver. One of the most important cities in Canada began because of a hat.
And it was from these first trading posts that the whole thing truly spread in a way no one had planned. Because the beaver, however abundant, had a limit. And what happened when it began to run out in one region is what actually drew the map of America. We'll see that in a moment. But first, you need to understand the size of the web. This hat created a web that wrapped around the entire world.
Because this story wasn't only between the forest and the port. A single beaver pelt entered a trading web that crossed the world. It could leave Canada, cross the Atlantic to England, become a hat in a London workshop, and then be sold in Spain, Portugal, Holland, Germany. Just to give you a sense of the scale, between 1700 and 1750, the revenue from beaver hats sold to Spain and Portugal alone rose from £44,000 to over £263,000. And 85% of all of England's fur exports were beaver hats. Look at the madness of it. A gigantic commercial web, spinning money around the entire world, driven by an accessory that people wore on their heads.
And now, the part that actually drew the map of America. The beaver is not infinite. As trappers exhausted the beavers of one region, they were forced to push deeper into the continent to find more. And there is the secret of everything. Every time an area ran out of beaver, the trappers advanced, and behind them came new trading posts, new routes, new settlements, The demand for fur pushed Europeans, mile by mile, deeper into the forest. Rivers were mapped, mountains were crossed, all in pursuit of the beaver. It was the hunt for this small animal that literally drew the paths of exploration into North America. And the three great powers, France, England, and Holland, fought over this trade tooth and nail, which shaped the rivalries and the borders of the New World.
But this story has a side we need to tell with honesty and with respect. The true protagonists of this rush, the ones who hunted and supplied the pelts, were the indigenous peoples. Without them, the trade would not have existed, and at first, it was an exchange. They received metal tools, kettles, axes that changed their way of life. But this relationship also profoundly transformed indigenous societies, and not always for the better. It created dependencies, it shifted alliances and wars between peoples, and the intense hunting steadily drained the beavers from entire regions, which damaged the ecosystems and their own way of life. It was an encounter that changed both sides forever. But it is only fair to acknowledge that, for the original peoples, the price of this story was extraordinarily high.
And like every fever, this one ended too. In the middle of the 19th century, two things closed the era of the beaver at the same time. The first, from relentless hunting, beavers were driven nearly to extinction across much of the continent. And the second, almost ironic, fashion changed. Silk hats, shinier and more modern, began to replace the old beaver felt hats. And almost overnight, that gigantic force that had driven the colonization of an entire continent simply lost its meaning. The engine stopped, but it left a permanent mark. The cities, the routes, the borders that Rush had drawn are still there, on the map of America today. And there's a quiet, happy ending. Only in recent decades have beavers begun to repopulate areas where they'd been gone for centuries. Today, there are beavers again, even in New York, in the Bronx.
So, what this whole story teaches is one of the most fascinating things about the world. We learn in school that the great empires were moved by gold, by spices, by conquest. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes it's a small, almost silly thing that moves history, a fashionable hat. The human desire for status, for beauty, for belonging, is one of the most powerful forces that exists, capable of pushing men across oceans and forests, and of redrawing the map of an entire continent. A beaver, a hat, and North America changed forever. Because in the end, the world moves exactly where human desire points. And that is why we look at the world and the forces that move it in detail.
Now tell me in the comments, did you ever imagine it was a hat, and not gold, that opened North America? And what other small thing do you think changed history without us noticing? Write it down. I read them all. If this story surprised you, leave a like, subscribe, and share it with that curious friend of yours. It's what helps this channel grow. And don't miss the next episode, where we follow the route of those who crossed the ocean in search of a new life, the story of those who moved forever. See you there, here on How the World Moves.